What's up everybody, Brian here. Thanks for joining me down in the Gecko Lab. Today's video, we're gonna talk all about foods you should not feed to your crested geckos. So right off the bat, I wanna tell you this video doesn't just cover crested geckos. This is also good information for any fruit-eating gecko. That includes all your New Caledonian species, gargoyle geckos, lychees, chahuas, Saracenorums, your Urodactylodes, any day geckos, Madagascar geckos, giant day geckos, Clemerize, any of those things, any fruit-eating gecko, all of this applies to them because these foods just aren't good for them. So what I've done is I've compiled a list of foods along with some examples here for you guys of both common foods that people think they can feed to their geckos, things that I've seen online suggested, things in bad care guides, and things that at one point were considered solid foods that just we know better now. We've got better information and better diets out there, and you don't want to be using any of these foods. So let's get right into it, and we're going to go over all the foods you don't want to feed to your geckos. So the first one I'm going to start off with today is this one here. This is Nature's Own Hurt Products Bites for Fruit-Eating Geckos. I don't even know what that means. It says they're specially formulated for fruit-eating geckos to promote growth and health. Yeah, no. Let's look at the ingredients here. Water, sugar, basically, is the first two ingredients. No, when the first two things you're feeding your gecko are water and sugar, you don't want to feed these to your geckos. So these are made just as basically shelf eye candy to put in the pet store and get people to buy them because it's got a picture of a cute Cresty on the front and they look like they would be appetizing, I think is what the company thinks. Basically, they're just crap. They're not good, they're not healthy, they don't promote good growth, they don't have the vitamins and nutrients and everything your gecko needs to thrive, and most importantly, the geckos don't eat them. They're like square cubes, and the geckos don't even recognize this as food. I've tested stuff like this in the past and given it to my geckos. They don't even eat it. It's just terrible. Anything like this. There's a bunch of different varieties. I'm not just picking on, well, I am picking on this brand, but not just this brand. There's a ton of different varieties of like pre-cubed cut up fruit bites for geckos. Don't even mess your time with any of those. It's not worth it. The next one that I want to get into, we're going to do the animal products first. The next one is these guys. They're by a company called Komodo, called Jelly Pots. There's a few different companies now that make jelly pot type things like this. This is one that's pretty common here. And a lot of people think that this is gecko food. People misconstrue that this is food for geckos. They even sell holders that fit these little cups perfectly so you can put their Komodo holder in your cage, and all you got to do is buy this, take the top off and drop it in there. And it's sad because it's almost marketed as like an easy way to care for your geckos. Guys, these are simple animals to care for. You feed them twice a week and that's it. I mean, they're easy, they're simple. You don't need a simpler way to do it. And the main point is these are just sugar water. That's all these are. It's like slightly flavored sugar water. There's no nutritional value to them. They don't add anything to your gecko's diet. Like, I mean, look at that thing. The thing is neon green. Anything that color, you shouldn't eat anything that's this color yourself, much less feed it to your geckos. It's ridiculous. Just avoid these at all costs. They will cause all kinds of issues. You don't want to deal with it. The next one we're looking at is these guys. These are somewhat popular in some circles, freeze-dried crickets. A lot of people will think, well, I don't want to mess with live bugs. I'm just going to do freeze-dried crickets because I want my gecko to have the best, happiest, healthiest life, and I've heard they need live insects to do that, so freeze-dried crickets, that's the way to go. Well, it's not. Freeze-dried crickets, aside from the fact that your gecko will not eat them because they're just inanimate objects in the bottom of the cage. Your gecko doesn't go eat the stick in its cage because it's not food. These aren't food. Aside from the fact that your gecko won't eat them, there's no nutritional value in these. They're freeze-dried crickets. Have you ever had like those backpacker meals, the freeze-dried meals? You ever try to eat one of those plain? Like, those aren't very good in any regard, even after they're rehydrated. These are just dry, crunchy crickets. There's no nutritional value to them. They're terrible for your animals. They don't provide any calcium. They don't provide much nutrients. They don't provide any vitamins. And like I said, the geckos won't eat them. My favorite thing is they used to sell a vibrating food dish. It was like a rock faux rock reptile food dish bowl with like a bowl in a bowl, and then it would vibrate it. So you could put your freeze-dried crickets in there, and the vibrating bowl would make the little dead crickets dance around. So then this was supposed to make your geckos think they were live prey, so they would hunt them. This was the stupidest thing I've ever seen in my life. It's basically like, imagine setting like one of those massagers that you use on your back, like putting that in your cage and turning it on, and having your gecko not just freak out and not go anywhere near it. Like, you really think your gecko's gonna go near this noisy, vibrating, giant platform? And then somehow, even if it does, mistake a dead cricket that's kind of shimmying across the surface? It was the stupidest thing ever. They marketed that for a while, but just feed live bugs. Freeze-dried crickets are not the way to go. In the same vein as freeze-dried crickets, you can get Zoomed's Cano crickets, which these ones are moist, let's see, natural juices locked in the can. They're never buy live food again, it says. So these are just like preserved crickets in, like dead crickets in, it's like canned ham, but with crickets. So they're wet. It's not freeze-dried. They're like soggy and gross, but that's not any better. They're still dead. They're still long dead crickets with little nutritional value. And again, your gecko's not going to eat them. Geckos don't eat dead things. It's just ridiculous. So those are the ones I wanted to touch on that are reptile products. They're marketed towards reptile people, and you want to avoid them at all cost. The next thing we're going to talk about is human foods that some people think you can feed your geckos. The biggest culprit in this, obviously, is baby food. Now, I remember when I first got my very first gecko, this was 2007-ish, somewhere in there, and it was beginning to become widely known at that point, but still fairly common knowledge that, oh yeah, they're fruit-eating geckos. You can just feed them baby food, because baby food's just mashed up fruit. Same, they'll do fine. And that's what I did for the first like 2.5 months that I had my very first gecko, was feed it baby food, because it made sense logically, but it's not the same thing. Baby food does not have the vitamin and calcium and nutrients and everything that your gecko needs. And you can run into this issue a lot with any of these foods, but particularly with baby food, it's been common to get geckos with metabolic bone disease. And this basically means they don't have enough calcium and nutrients in their diet, and their skeleton actually starts to erode and their bones become flimsy. You see it in the bottom jaw in geckos a lot of times. You can see it with really badly kinked spines and wavy kinked tails, and their limbs get messed up, and it's horrific to see. And it used to be a lot more common because people would feed baby food only, and the geckos love it. They'll eat the crap out of it because it's tasty, but it doesn't do anything for their bodies, and they eventually just erode from the lack of nutrients. So sometimes you'll hear people say, oh yeah, banana baby food is fine. You know, it's okay because it's just mashed up bananas. There's nothing else in it, and bananas are healthy. No, it doesn't matter that it's just mashed up bananas. It's not good enough for your geckos. You have to feed a proper, fully balanced, crested gecko specific diet, or your geckos will run into issues eventually. I've also heard, I got a couple flavors here, just because, I mean, they make them in all different fruit flavors, but you don't want any of them. The other one that I have heard I wanted to touch on is meat-based baby foods. I have heard in the past, it's not something that I've seen going around forums and whatnot recently, but in the past I have heard that, oh yeah, you should mix some turkey or chicken baby food. Either feed this to your geckos or mix it in with your gecko diet. It'll boost those protein levels. That's kind of ridiculous. Geckos don't eat turkeys. Baby food, as I said a million times, doesn't have the vitamins and nutrients your geckos need. And if you really want to boost your gecko's protein intake for better growth in your juvies or better breeding in your females, feed them bugs, feed them live crickets, feed them live dubia roaches, feed them live mealworms. Healthy, thriving, strong, gut-loaded insects is the way to do it. Processed, pureed turkey in a can, not what your geckos need. So do not fall into that. No baby food under any circumstance and any flavor is what your geckos need. The last one I'm going to touch on is jelly. Same idea as baby food. I've heard people say, well, geckos eat fruit. If I get jelly, it's mashed up fruit. It will be fine for them. For all the reasons I've already said ad nauseum here, it's not. Jelly has a lot of sugar in it. It is low on vitamins and minerals and calcium and no protein at all. Even if you get organic jelly, I had somebody argue with me, well, I only buy organic jelly and it's basically just mashed up fruits, no other ingredients. I'm like, okay, if I just mash up a banana and feed it to my gecko, it's still gonna get sick. They can't live on just a mashed up fruit their whole lives. One argument that you will see is people say, well, I just use baby food or just jelly or just a mashed up banana to make a treat food for my geckos. And that's something I've covered in a different video. If you want to see my video on making treat foods for your geckos, check out the link down in the description box below. But treat foods is something you have to be careful with. If you feed them too often, your geckos can have issues. If you feed the wrong kinds of fruits in your treats, it's not a good thing for your geckos. And really, geckos just don't need treats. It's more to make you feel good than it is to make the geckos feel good. They're not like humans. They don't impulse eat Snickers bars like we do because they want treats. It's not the same. It doesn't make them like have a sense of satisfaction like we do when we eat something that tastes really good. And even for humans, we shouldn't do that. It's not good for us. We just, we're not as smart as most animals, unfortunately. Anyways, I'm rambling now. That is my rant on bad foods for your geckos. Guys, take care of your animals, please. I'm begging you. I hate when people send me pictures of their geckos with messed up spines and all kinds of issues and ask me what's wrong. And I'm like, I want to just be like if you would have just watched some YouTube content, not even my videos, sure, watch my videos, but any videos on proper crested gecko care, we wouldn't be having this conversation, and it breaks my heart to see that. So spread the knowledge around. Feed your geckos good, solid diets. Pangea, Rapashi, Black Panther Zoological, what is the lychee guy that made his? Steve Semelli. Why am I banking his name? Leaping Lychee's diets are good. There's a bunch of them. The Necton diets I tested out a while back are good. There's so many options now. You don't need to mess with any of this. It's crap. It'll hurt your geckos. You don't want to do it. Take my word for it. I promise I won't lead you guys astray. That's going to do it for me today, guys. Thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate it. I am Brian. As always, Altitude Exotics, altitudeexotics.com. Don't forget to follow me on Facebook and Instagram. And yeah, just a quick reminder, my new website is live. The brand new altitudeexotics.com is up, and I have new geckos for sale every Friday night. So don't forget to check that out. I will see you guys soon. Thank you guys so much. Be kind, be safe. I love you all. I will see you in the next video.